Hour 2 Overdrive continues, brought to you by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line to the final score. Bryan Hayes, O-Dog, Jeff O'Neill, Jamie Noodles, McLennan, our buddy Jason Strudwick here in a few moments. As the Leafs are back in action tomorrow night, the Raptors are in action tonight. The Blue Jays have wrapped up their spring training. They'll be in action on Thursday. It's crazy. Baseball's arrived. And later this hour, Shohei Ohtani will issue a statement. It's not a press conference because there's no back and forth, right? You know, Matt Caws just tweeted that out. Why is it being called a presser? It's not. It's a statement.
So he's not doing this in front of media members. He is issuing a statement. Is it even like any type of video, or he's just a piece of paper that shows up on Twitter?
Yeah, you might as well blue screen it, right? Like, what's the point? Just fire up the blue screen, pretend you're anywhere in the world, right? And just issue your statement and go. Why even talk? Like, I guess he has to show up at some point. But this isn't going to be enough. Like, people are dying to get to this guy, talk to this guy. The Japanese media, they must be going nuts in Japan about this story, naturally. But, some sort of statement will be issued by Ohtani later in the hour. So we'll try to turn that around as quickly as we can. I just saw news come in that the Jaromir Jagr bobbleheads have been secured down at Pittsburgh.
Was that all a ploy?
PR stunt, wasn't it?
I can't figure this out because I've read it both ways. It reads as if they're mocking people. Like, it has to be a joke, right? Because they tweet out, like, you know, the bobbleheads have been secured, case closed. You know, like, why would you joke about something? If you actually got robbed, why would you be – this isn't a joking matter.
Right. Maybe
if you're not
it's
familiar
a side
with the story.
play, like it's a distraction to take your focus off the losing.
Right, because originally they were supposed to be handed out on March 14th. A game against the Sharks, and then the story broke that the bobbleheads, the truck carrying the bobbleheads, I guess, was stolen, and now the Penguins have issued the statement saying that they've secured them, and the Penguins were notified last week that a special cargo recovery team negotiated the return of the stolen property to a secure warehouse located in Ontario, California. And
that's so weird. Yeah. I don't know.
Like, how did they get to California?
Yeah.
What the hell is a special cargo recovery team? And could you think of a bigger waste of time? I mean, if there was something that happened here illegally, obviously then the authorities should be involved here. But, you know, not to poke away at people that have been the victims of their cars being stolen or whatever, but bobbleheads is a priority. Got to find the bobbleheads, but, you know, 2,000 cars that get stolen every single night. No special cargo team. Why don't we find a special cargo
put our
team
resources
for the cars?
into that.
Yeah, as opposed to bobbleheads, you know.
Yeah.
Which maybe I'm falling into the trap, Noodles. Maybe you're right. Maybe this is just some big
We're talking about it. We're talking about it. It's a PR. It could be a PR,
could be.
You know,
conspiracy
scam or
theory,
whatever.
A bobblehead conspiracy theory.
I don't know. I wanted your guys' opinion. I fly back early off of after a game. And have you guys ever done this where you've mistaken somebody and now it's so awkward? Like
wrong name type stuff?
Well, 5:30 in the morning, I was going to the security line, and I'm walking up, and I would have bet my life that was Dave Poulin standing in front of me with a suitcase, trench coat on. Like, you know, Poulin is, like, he's thick, like, put together, and, you know, grayish hair, the glasses, and I think it was Poulin. He's probably flying to a scouting meeting or doing something. So I go bombing up behind the guy.
No.
And we're in the Nexus line. And I'm like, God, they'll let any, you know, and I swear they'll let any effing floater around here. Like thinking that, you know, Poulin's going to turn around and give me a hug. And it was not Poulin. It was.
No.
And the
was
guy
it someone else you knew or just a stranger?
Nobody. It was a stranger who was on my flight too. It was literally a twin of Dave Poulin's, and I was so rattled, like I was so embarrassed because I it's not like I said anything egregious, but you know, Poulin's a friend, you make a comment or whatever, and I'm like, they'll let all the floaters in here or whatever. I dropped an F-bomb in there, and the guy turned around and he was so put back by it.
Yeah.
And I tried explaining to him, I'm sorry, I thought you were my friend. And he wasn't having anything to do. He just kept walking.
Did he dome you and be like, actually,
he wasn't
don't ever look at
doming me, but it was awkward. And then I saw him in the Air Canada Lounge. He was sitting one seat away from me on the other side. Like
he'll never leave you. That's the problem. Once you establish that guy is he probably lives around the corner from you.
Yeah.
Like he is never going to be out of your life now. You'll see him again every time you fly into Ottawa. The Poulin doppelganger.
I was so embarrassed.
It's so awkward, especially in a setting like that where you can't escape.
No.
Like if you're in a parking lot, you're like, hey, screw whatever, I'm getting in my car, I'm out of here. You got to go sit at the gate, wait. The guy's around.
He's literally, I was sitting in whatever, row 3, he was in 2.
Oh,
he could
it's the
see
worst.
me. He could lock eyes with me. It was awful.
Mortifying. Yeah, mortifying situation that we've all been in. Everyone can relate to that, and everyone's cringing. I think the city, Edmonton, would have been cringing on Saturday night, man. It was really cool. We were in the box, and Hedge was down there. Jennifer Hedger was down there, and her husband, Sean, and they brought Jagr down. So Hedge is a Leaf fan, and Sean is from Edmonton, and Sean's obviously a big Oiler fan. He had a throwback Billy Ranford jersey, which I'm sure you love, Noodles.
Oh,
and, Jagr, their son, had to pick one or the other, and he went with the Oilers. So Hedge was just grilling them the whole game because it was 1-0, 2-0, 3-0, 4-0. 5-0, and the Leafs just laid a beating on the Oilers. And it's a perfect time to bring in our good buddy, Jason Strudwick. How you doing, Struddy?
There is no way that you guys are going to preempt me today for Ray Ferraro or someone else, right? I was getting a call for sure today.
You are locked and loaded, buddy. This worked out beautifully for the Maple Leafs in the city of Toronto. And everyone's spinning it that the Oilers didn't show up, and how much of it was that they didn't show up, and how much of it was that the Leafs said, we're going to push you around and we're going to control the game?
Let me guess about the narrative. The Leafs played a perfect game Saturday night, and then Sunday was a scheduled loss. Who's
exactly
the first one to say that?
I said it no more than an hour ago. Scheduled loss and a perfect game Saturday night.
Okay. Anyways, let's talk about. I got to give the Leafs credit. I honestly, guys, it's 5:00 here for you guys that aren't familiar with time change. 7:00 in Toronto. I had my knitting out, 2 different projects I'm working on. I had a nice bottle of port set aside, and the game started, and I was looking forward to a fun night. And it wasn't a fun night. Like this one, the close game on Saturday night. And I've been in those where you've, taken a beating on Hockey Night in Canada. It's not fun. And it's even worse when you do it against the Leafs because the Leafs fans are happy. You just want to send them home unhappy. So, the Leafs, they played a really good game. Like I credit 2 things. One, their penalty kill was really good, really very aggressive, and the Oilers really never seemed completely comfortable. But also the physicality at Edmondson and McCabe. I thought they kind of led their team. And the Oilers, they weren't ready for that level of physicality from the Leafs. And then, it's hard when you go into a game not kind of being ready to be physical, it's hard to play catch up, right? You're now chasing around, you're trying to make it happen. And the guys that the Oilers look at to be physical, they weren't physical enough that night. So I give them these full marks. They looked really good. And what even makes it better if you're a Leafs fan, and probably worse if you're an Oilers fan, is that it was the Leafs non-stars that scored. Unless you really love Matthews' empty netter, like it was all the guys you're probably not counting on to score that made the difference. So really, really nice game by the Leafs, and just sucks for Saturday Night Hockey, though.
Strud, can you talk about, there's no excuses in the big leagues. You got to do what you got to do, but they played Thursday night and then travel and then the back-to-back, like coming east. Like, that's not easy, is it?
No, it's not. And I can't be that guy that says they're scheduled losses.
Wait a minute.
No, I understand. I'm just talking about the difficulty of ramping it back up there.
It is true. It is tricky, and I can say from experience, the 2 hours does make a difference, right? Because it's just hard to fall asleep that night before. Because if let's say you're trying to go to bed at 10:00 Toronto time, it's 8:00 Edmonton time, so it does make a difference. But I'm going to say this, guys: the 2 previous games before that for the Oilers, I'm pretty sure they won them, but they didn't beat the other team. They didn't play that well, and they were asked a lot after the games about, can you learn something from a win in which a game maybe should lose? And the guys are like, yeah, kind of can, but sometimes you just need to have a square kick right in the junk to really kind of wake you up and not just understand we got to play a certain way all the time, start the games on time. And so I think that it sucks because then they roll into Ottawa and struggle again. But they didn't look super energetic on Saturday. I thought Sunday's a better game, but you know, you could almost feel this coming, right? You can kind of feel it sliding into the weekend that maybe they weren't 100% at their best game. And then a team like Toronto, who was ready for it, because I think didn't Toronto beat, was it Washington they won 7-3 against or something? I think they played pretty well. So they were ready to go. I didn't feel the Oilers were completely ready to go.
Strud, did you have any tricks along the way about adjusting to the time zone, i.e., like maybe take a peek more than you normally would the night before a game?
No. You know, it is hard. And when I played in Vancouver, it's 3 hours, and that was brutal. Like you know, we fly to Detroit, and it's 9 o'clock, you know, or it's midnight there, and you're trying to sleep. It's only 9 o'clock your time. You know, you're just getting ready to turn on Seinfeld. So it was pretty hard to flip it over that quick. But you know, you just got to find a way to get to sleep. You know, and you try not napping that day if you're flying, but that's also tricky. Like it's not easy. But again, every team deals with the time change. But I always found 1 hour not to be a big deal. 2 and 3, especially, you know, the 2 and 3, that gets to be a battle, guys.
Struddy, did you have on your bingo card at the start of the season Zach Hyman getting 50 goals?
I don't know who did. But you know what? I think that you could see when he scored that goal, his 50th, like it was pure joy. Everyone was so happy for him. They were hugging him, and I think Hyman was on the verge of tears. It was just a really special moment. I played on two different teams, Pavel Bure and Jagr. Obviously, I probably had 25 assists each of them to get those goals. But like it was neat because they'd already done it. But this is a guy who not only had he not done it, no one expected him to do it, and most people don't do it after 30. So he's the perfect complement to McDavid, right? He just gets it. It's like Kunitz and Crosby. Sometimes they just chemistry clicks. And not that it was unexpected, but unexpected to the tune of 50 goals, Noodles.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 50. I mean, that is
big number.
It's an incredible number. Like it shrinks the amount of players who have ever done that in history. You hear 50, you think Bossy, you think Ovechkin, you think Hull. Like I know those guys got to 60 and 70 and 80, but 50 has always been the number. It's always been the most important goal-scoring number in hockey.
Gold standard, man.
The gold standard.
Yeah.
You hit 50. You're in a category that they can never take that away from you.
Yeah.
And he's a 50 goal scorer, and you know who knows if he'll ever do it again. Oh, you referenced it earlier. You and I were talking last night, Struddy. Like this guy might get 60. You know, they have 11, 12 games
12
left.
games.
And he scores every night.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like there's a chance that he gets to at least 55, 56, which again, I can't believe it considering how he came into the league, what he was, you know, he was a guy that just worked really hard, which you appreciate, and he battled, and he checked well, and he killed penalties, and he blocked shots, but goal scoring was never a part of the conversation with Hyman, ever. If anything, he would take heat because his hands would fail him, and now he's scored 50. It's just an incredible accomplishment.
But different. He did. Let's just compare him to Austin Matthews, right? No one's comparing his shot to Austin Matthews, and then quite frankly, there are very few shots like his Matthews around the league. But he's very strategic and smart in the way that he works himself around the net and gets open. And you know, the amount of abuse you have to take in front of the net isn't that great anymore. You know, it's almost like a open for business sign in front of the opponent's net. You just go stand there and nothing really happens. So he really has worked on his game around that net, learning to get open, understanding how McDavid or Draisaitl or whoever, what they like to do and how he can complement them. And there's value in that, you know. So it seems like disrespectful to say he doesn't shoot like Matthews, but at the end of the day, they're in the same neighborhood for goals scored. So I think it's a real compliment for him to be able to still be successful at 50 goals in a different way than maybe what we call a pure shooter, because I don't really see Hyman as a pure shooter.
No, but he battles and gets to the right areas. And, Edmonton again on Saturday, we're making light of it, but they didn't play well. And it was disappointing because, like, we were down there, Noodles and I were down there. It was the buzz was incredible here, as you can imagine. It's the number one ticket. When McDavid's in town, it's the number one ticket. And, he didn't really show up, and they didn't really show up, and that's okay. And Bobby McMahon stole the show. But,
From Alberta.
From Alberta, exactly, and that's always a good sign. And
Wainwright.
It's one of those scenarios where the Oilers have this reputation, which is warranted because they played as well as they have, and they are a really, really good team. But like, how much separation do you see, Struddy, from whoever you think is the best team in the league, and whoever you think is the 12th
team.
or 10th or 12th best team in the league. Like, is there really that big of a gap right now?
Yeah, and I love the way you phrase it. I feel like the last couple of years it's been pretty clear. Vegas, Colorado, especially you have Colorado. Like I would have been pretty comfortable betting a lot of money that Colorado's going to win that Stanley Cup. Like that's how good they were. This year there's a lot of teams that are very good, but they've all had their moments, right? You look at out west, I think you can look at, obviously the Canucks, it's, the Demko situation week to week, that's pretty broad. The Oilers, maybe there's an issue on that second line about who's on the second line. Then you look in the Central Division, there's 3 really good teams. Can Colorado get their guys dialed up? All the new players, can they get them all figured out? Winnipeg seems to be going a little bit soft, but still a deep team. And then Dallas, did they do enough? Did they add enough? Are they happy? Is Logan Stankoven and these types of guys enough? They look out east like Florida, New York, the Leafs, like there's, what is that? That's got to be close to 10 right there.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
You could make that point that like 1 through 10, this is maybe the closest we've seen as far as the gap of however you perceive the group, right? Whether you think it's Florida first or the Canucks or whatever, whoever you think is first to 10, it's probably the closest it's been in a while because like going especially the last 2 years, the Colorado, I thought it was 1, and then way down the list, everybody else was there after Colorado.
What do you make of some of the greasiness down the stretch here, some of the fighting and, a resurgence of, we'll call it some tough play. I don't mind it. There's a lot of people that, enjoy it. And then I call them leaners, people that say, I don't like it, but then they lean to their buddy and go, I watched it, So, what do you, do you not agree? There's so many leaners out there.
It's getting nasty, man. Like it was, you've seen it all weekend.
Yeah. It's, I was a leaner when I'd go out with you, Noodles. I'm like, I don't really want to go out tonight. And then we'd drive by the shooter bar, and he'd be like, want to have one? I'm like, hey, just one. 20 minutes later, I'd walk out of there with about 5 deep and just feeling it as Mr. Jones hit the dance floor. It's kind of a...
Leaning over to Noodles saying, I really had a good time.
Yeah, blaming it all on me.
No, you know what? I think that, though, this is the time of year where you're trying to express yourself and trying to maybe get your physical game going. Let's just go back to that game Saturday night against the Leafs. Like the Oilers weren't able to match the physicality that the Leafs brought, and Edmondson looked unbelievable, right? And McCabe, those guys, I want to say they had 13 hits between them. I might be wrong, but I thought that's what it was. That's a physical group of D, and so, I'm looking on the other side, Nurse, Darnay, Cece was not the most physical player, but you have to step out of your comfort zone. You got to push back. You can't just allow your top players to get hit. You got to look for Riley. You got to look for Matthews. You got to look for, Sir Willie Nylander. You got to put bodies on those guys, knock them down, make it hard for them, right? And it's that time of year. You're trying to set the tone because you're going to play. The Oilers play. Who's it? Winnipeg, LA this week. There's a good chance that they'll play LA in the first round. So you want to kind of set the tone with them. And then you play Winnipeg, well, I'm not sure it's going to have the crossover, but you may end up playing them in the, hopefully it would be the conference final. And then you still got, they play Colorado. That's another team they play. That's all in the next, I think, 4 games. So you got to start letting people know, like, hey, this isn't going to be fun. Like, you don't just come out here thinking it's going to be a good time with your fancy clothes. If we're going to come in, it's going to be uncomfortable for you to play. Not only will we try to beat you on the power play and 5-on-5, but we're going to be hard in our zone, in front of the net. And just like Colorado's going to do that. Like, Nate McKinnon's not backing off. Mm-hmm. Adam Lowry's not backing off. These guys are built to go and play in those hard areas. You've got to meet and or exceed their level of intensity at this time of year.
Yeah, I love it. And like Edmondson, we were saying earlier, Struddy, he kind of arrived Saturday night for Leaf fans. Like that there's been an appetite for a long time. Just a monster that, yes, he's crossing the line, but if the refs don't call it, who cares? Like they might call a cross-check here or there, but he's willing to push those boundaries. And him going on Draisaitl all night, he went on McDavid all night.
Hayes, just making it uncomfortable to be around there.
And the best players.
Exactly. Yeah, it's like that's not really asking for the world. I didn't think watching this. And for years, it's just been like, go ahead, stop in front of our goalie, yell at him when you score the OT winners, blow snow, put in rebounds. It's like that's just playing for keeps. Mm-hmm. I thought that was like a standard thing in that league, and I'm happy to see it. Very happy to see it.
Well, it just, the thing you want to do is, when I played, I tried to make people do this, but it didn't always work. Sometimes it was the opposite. But you want to make someone on the other team have a bad day. So when they think they have to go against you again the next day in a playoff series or in a game, like, oh God, I got to play this guy again. Now, some people can do it with speed. Others can do it with their tenacity on whatever the penalty kill or their power play. But for some guys, it's just about the walls and in front of the net, and you make it really uncomfortable, and that's where you grind it down. And the manager of the Rangers, Chris Drury, pretty skilled players. And Noodles, I think you played with him. I hated playing against this guy, not because he would hit me, not because he'd be slash or anything, but he would be all over that front end. I remember one time I slashed his arm so many times I thought it would just come off. Like I thought it would just be like gone. And he tapped it and then just looked at me and like just kind of smiled. I was like, "Are you kidding me? Like, what do you do to a guy like that?" I should have been in the box for many times, but it's just that I just hated when guys would not stop competing when you're competing against them.
Yeah.
Those would have been chops too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Struddy used the 2x4 for a stick, so it was
Babe Ruth
lumber.
bat. Struddy.
To be fair, the first one was supposed to be a pass, dogs. And it turned into a slash.
The follow through, high and hard off the guy's arm.
Well, I'm going to get one anyways. I'm going to do it 3 more times, and you're not going to give me one, so you give him the 5th splash for no reason.
Right. Yeah, exactly. That's not your problem, man. Go talk to the ref. And the puck's in the back of the net anyway, so he's fine. Doesn't matter. You didn't want it to be blown down. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
He was going to get you at some point. All right, Struddy. Well, it happened to be after a loss. If the Oilers had won, you would have been here anyway, too. Yeah. Right? We were committed to that.
I know I would have been pushed off. Something would have happened, right? FC, Toronto, the injury to their Italian looked like a hamstring. Looked like he blew a hamstring and proper stretching or warming up.
That's tough playing outdoors in that weather, man. It was cold on Saturday night. Cold.
What was it? What was it? It wasn't even below 0, was it?
That was close to it.
It seemed like it. It was very cold walking to my car after the game, I'll tell you that.
It was cold enough, man, to get your attention. Playing soccer outdoors, wasn't fun, man. That BMO crowd was... They were fighting it, man. They were fighting it.
Struddy will be tuning in to Shohei Ohtani and seeing what he's got to say for himself here soon.
There's no questions like that. I don't know. That is really weird. I don't know. It doesn't make sense.
Jive,
Something doesn't add up.
Yeah.
It doesn't add up. $700 million. They're sweating. That league is on fire right now. They're sweating so much.
Man, they cannot believe this cloud is hanging over them. He's a Dodger. It's opening day on Thursday, and everyone wants to know if Ohtani's laying bets on the tournament and what his story. Because now they're digging up everything on the interpreter. Right now, he didn't go to that school. Now he actually doesn't even speak Japanese. It's like, where'd they find this?
Who's where would you like the underpants cam? Would it be Dave Roberts, Bob Manford, like Ohtani himself? Where is the one you want the hidden cam?
I think it's Bob Manfred.
Yeah, me too.
Bobby Manfred is at a 50 out of 50. He can't wear white underwear right now.
No, he has to be.
Not until the 7th inning of the 3rd week will he wear a black pair of Calvin Kleins.
No.
He is nervous, and he should be.
Nervous.
Everyone's buzzing about it.
Going streaking.
Yeah, watch yourself, Robbie Manfred. Watch yourself. All right, Struddy. We'll do it again soon. Thank you, buddy.
Yeah. See you guys.
Jason Strudwick joining us here on the Maple Toyota Hotline. Check out Maple Toyota's huge truck and SUV lineup, including Tundra, 4Runner, Highlander, and Grand Highlander in stock and ready to deliver. Visit mapletoyota.com.
Bobby Mans.
I think it's got to be Rob Manfred because, something really is going on here. Like if they've dug up something really serious with Ohtani, it is serious because Ohtani's, it's his money, it's a bookie, all that kind of stuff. But the Pete Rose interviews are just flying online now, right? Like anyone that sees Pete, they've got a camera phone. They're like, "Hey, Pete, what do you make of Ohtani?"
What's he saying?
Well, I think he's, what's he gonna say? And baseball is what it is. He's never gonna be back in the game. He's not gonna manage again or anything. Like it's Cooperstown. Cooperstown's got to make a call, but I don't think they're not gonna be swayed one way or the other. But if you're Manfred, this is your meal ticket. This is Shohei Ohtani. It's the LA Dodgers. It's $700 million. If you're the Players Association, this guy represents the largest contract in American sports.
Yeah.
And, it's caught up in all of this kind of mystery and uncertainty. There are some details out. We know, the context of it. Gambling, bookies, his interpreter, his friend.
If he did something, he better come with the heat and just get it over with. Because if it drags out and there's more garbage and it gets worse, you're just anyone that represents him or family needs to tell him if there's something wrong, some wrongdoing here, you better just come with the heat and get it over with.
It had to lawyer up. This will be a prepared statement. That is lawyered up, and it'll have, law speak or something like that, or PR spin. But you're right. If he's guilty of something, you
get it out of the way
with the truth. Just go right at him and say, "Hey, I made a mistake here, and we're gonna work with the league to make amends or whatever." Because if he admits to it, he can get clipped. Correct? Like this is
big time.
Absolutely. If you admit that you knew what was going on or whatever, I don't see how he's not suspended immediately, like on an indefinite basis. But that's not going to happen. He's not going to come out because if you're going to do that, you would have just probably issued that statement when the news came out last week. I would assume, and we'll find out in the next half an hour, he's going to have to go with the statement that this was theft and he was misled or the money was stolen, and I think I would assume what's coming is he is going to hammer home, I did not bet on baseball. Like, I did not bet, and I did not bet on baseball, and I never heard anything about anything to do with baseball, right? Because that's what he's really got to hammer home from a PR standpoint and from an integrity of the sport standpoint. And that's where Manfred, you talk about knowing what's up, right? He's got to make sure that message is loud and clear. Yet if you're not going to field any questions, it's also not going to go away, right?
Yeah.
Like, they're just opening days in a few days. He's going to have to talk. They're going to have to hire a new interpreter. I'm assuming they've already done that, or they have someone who can do that. But, we'll find out in about 20 minutes. All right, Chris Johnston still to come. Travis Green still to come. The Jays with some positive news on Gausman today. We'll tell you about that. Something to chew on coming up, brought to you by Boston Pizza. And also our best bets with the Raptors in action tonight, taking on the Brooklyn Nets down at the Scotiabank Arena. Overdrive continues, TSN 1050 and on TSN 4.
Technique.
All right, every day we announce a current or former Maple Leaf player. By the end of the week, there's generally a 5-pack. We're off on Friday. This week there'll be a 4-pack. Bit of a shorthanded lineup this week, but we're giving away tickets to see the Leafs play the Panthers April 1st. That's what we're talking about.
Can you repeat something that I didn't hear? Did you say something about Friday?
Yeah, I don't believe we're on Friday. We could be on Friday, but as far as I know, we're not.
We're not. It's Good Friday. We don't have a show.
Don't believe we're on. So
you want to see a guy that's going to be good from here on out?
You're ready now? Now you're engaged. Now it's
I've been engaged. I've been not bad thus far, but I will really crank up the heat, and you'll get the best version of myself up until 7 p.m. on Thursday.
I love it. All right. So that's great to hear. Now let me finish this read quickly because we're giving away Leafs-Panthers tickets on Thursday. And, of course, throwing in a $250 Vanilla Visa prepaid card. Vanilla Visa prepaid cards are available for purchase at Petro-Canada. Today's player of the day is David Booth. David Booth. He hit some wheels. Short-term Leaf, longer-term Panther. And the Panthers, reputations change so quickly in sports. The Panthers were a disaster for so long. Mm-hmm. Them and the Leafs were jockeying back and forth for the team that never made the playoffs forever.
And then they got good and won the President's Trophy and got absolutely kicked in the junk in the first round by Tampa.
Right. And then flipped everything upside down. So we need Kachuk and we need different elements. Backed into the playoffs last year and then go to a cup final. And this year they're fighting for the President's Trophy. It's incredible. But, it wasn't that long ago where Florida was a team that no one was paying attention to. Yeah. And it can happen quickly. You just need to establish the right players, the right culture, invest. By all accounts, they have invested a lot in what, the facilities down there, the practice facilities. But, yeah, David Booth was a guy kind of flipping back and forth when he was a Leaf and when he was a Panther. It wasn't like either team was really knocking on the playoffs. Yet now it's an annual event. Florida's going back there for at least the third year in a row. If not more than that, the Leafs will be going to the playoffs for the eighth year in a row, which, again, doesn't get you a statue or a banner or a parade. But there was a time not that long ago, a decade ago, where they never were making the playoffs.
Dude, it was a mess. It
really was. Yeah, and it's somewhat, there's perspective here when it comes to the Blue Jays. The Jays last year, it never felt right. It was a disappointing season. Yeah. It didn't feel like they were ever going to connect. Yet they won 89 games and made the playoffs. Like they did make the playoffs.
But it
last
always
year.
seemed like they were coming close to getting it together. It never seemed to be complete as far as what they were doing.
No, 100%. It never really felt like the Jays were going to get over the top, and ultimately they didn't. They didn't backdoor into the playoffs, but they get in, and then they lose in 2 games and see you later. But this year with all the injuries and the expectations, I sense people are pessimistic. There's some negativity hanging around this team. I guess all I'm driving at is it has been a pretty good 3 or 4 years with the Jays, all things considered. And when you think of what it's been the last decade, they go to the playoffs in 15, 16. They were in the playoffs last year. They've been in the playoffs the last couple of years. But it can't flip. Look at the Raptors. Like the Raptors lost to the Washington Wizards on Saturday night. Do you know how hard that is to do? You know how tough it is to lose to Washington? It's almost impossible. And they have lost 10 games in a row now. I believe the Nets have lost 6 in a row, and the Nets are a 6.5-point favorite on FanDuel tonight.
But it seems like we talked about it.
That's how quickly
it
changes.
Oklahoma State or Oklahoma City. It was like they were favored by 17. That meant 25.
Right.
And it seems like 6 means 15.
That's exactly right. Like Oklahoma City, it was a 17.5-point spread, and they won by 20 or 23.
You said it best in your tweet, Hayes. I pay attention to your Twitter. I don't know why, but I do. And your tweet said 2 things about the spread. They didn't cover it, and absolutely no one is surprised.
Right. That's them in a nutshell right now. And, I could see them covering tonight because Brooklyn's terrible too, and at some point they're going to stay in a game. So I think I'd take the 6.5, but I think that probably means they lose by 4. Like to put a negative spin on something that's already been incredibly negative. That's where they're at. We had a confirm and deny a week ago where we said, do you think they'll win 3 more games the rest of the year? And I denied it. I'm like, no, I don't see it.
Really?
I don't see it. That's how bad this lineup is.
Yeah, it was 3 or 4 what it was. And
right.
You said, I don't think they can do it.
I don't see it. That's like without Barnes and without Pirtle and without Barrett and Quickly and Trent was out with a back issue. It's not good, man. It's really not good. And realistically, they're either going to keep their pick and pick like 6th, or someone's going to hop over top of them and they're going to hand the 7th overall pick to San Antonio. That's troublesome, man. When you're tanking and you're not sure you're going to have your pick, it's definitely a concern. All right, the awards. Because you and I, we've been calling for this. We believe we deserve to be a part of this process, right? There's a lot of different people that have votes, whether it's for the Hart or the Jack Adams or the Calder or the Vezina or whatever it is, and we're never included in any of this. The Canadian Athlete of the Year. Everyone's in that room. I think Doogie's got to vote on that. And you and I never
We're considered a joke.
Basically, we're considered a joke. They want nothing to do with us.
And I told you I don't want to mention the member of the media because he's a first-class guy and I consider him a friend. Called me 3 or 4 years into my tenure in broadcasting, and he's like, would you like to vote on the NHL Awards? Sure, sign me up. I watch all the games. I'll have this dialed in, take it very seriously. Never heard a word from the guy as soon as I agreed to do it.
Yeah, see, that would suggest to me he brought it back to the room, and the room revolted.
Yeah,
right?
the room was like,
dude,
no.
There's guys that are voting that don't watch the games. They put people in wrong positions. They put people that are not even playing it. It's embarrassing.
Well, the guy who voted against McDavid, who should have had a unanimous MVP season last year, the guy in Pittsburgh, he should lose his vote right there.
Well,
wasn't it McDavid 165 out of 166, and there was a guy in Pittsburgh that had he had Pasternak, but it was
the thing. Pasta was the best player on the best team, and I'm not for canceling someone because they have a different viewpoint. And that's not nearly as extreme for me. Like, I think McDavid should have won, and if I had a vote, I would have given it to him. But I can understand. Pasta had 60 goals last year.
Yeah,
he was the man on the best team. If it's the guy, the voter that's like out of nowhere, I'm putting, some player that's on the third line, he's going to win my Selke, or he's going to win, whatever position it might be, where it's completely out of left field, and it's so unnecessary, and it's so biased, so ignorant. Those are the kind of red flags that naturally pop up where I think people turn on you. But that's fine. Everyone can have their own opinion. We're going to supply our own. right?
Yeah,
And Noodles, I told
I'm
you
fired
were
up.
gonna do the list.
I will choose one list or the other, and I'll say
and
this
you
is
have
what
to
I like.
say you have to just say this is the better of the list, and this is the list that I would take to that person that I spoke to years ago.
Okay.
And say put him in
So we got to convince Noodles here that we
to
have
convince the guy that called me.
right to call the other guy to convince everyone else in the room that you're legit and possibly I'm legit. All right, so we'll come back. We can do the Jack Adams today. We talk about the coaches all the time. Coach is very tough, very difficult to establish the best coaches, right? Very, very difficult because there's every year you have a variety of different options, narrative-driven, good teams, bad teams, everything in between. So we're going to come back and we'll list our 5. We got CJ still to come, Travis Green still to come as well. Our best bets coming up, courtesy of FanDuel. Raptors Nets tonight. Overdrive continues, TSN 1050 and on TSN 4. All right, this is our time to shine, all right? We've been making our case for quite some time. We believe we're serious people, right? Jeff O'Neill, Bryan Hayes, serious people, legitimate hockey people.
Serious
we watch, we
NHL
analyze.
constituents.
That's right. That's right. A member of the community that I think a lot of people take seriously. Noodles, obviously you're well established as well, and you have a vote. You know, you're a part of the voting class. Bo and I are not. We're scum.
Wow.
You know,
And you're not
we're
scum.
and we're not a part of that class.
And I'm going to add one thing. Eddie just sent me a note. Chris Edwards, you guys know, friend of the show. Mm-hmm. The dude from Pittsburgh, apparently, not only did he not vote 97 and it was passed, apparently McDavid was 5th on his list.
That's tough to understand. That's not going to fly.
Anyways,
okay,
carry on. But that's when you got 5th. That you got to look at the voting situation.
Yeah,
Okay, so Noodles, very simple. Your role here. You look at them, analyze, and say, that is the better list. And you don't have to say because why. You just say, this is better, and that should move forward. Joe from the Bridge, please post my list. I'd like to go through mine first.
I'm going to say why.
Say something, please.
Yeah.
Paul Maurice is your coach of the year. Went to the finals last year, and what a rebound. They stumbled and bumbled a little bit at the beginning of the season, and they have established themselves as the front runner, I think, to win the Stanley Cup. Our boy down in Boston with those little crew necks and the jackets, I love Jimmy Montgomery as a second place. Boston Bruins lose Bergeron, Krejci, and they are firing on all cylinders. Jimmy Montgomery gets the best out of everyone, including Celine Dion. Uncle Rick Tocchet out in Vancouver. It's been a total turnaround. Rick wanted to change the culture, everyone playing for keeps. Someone on this group doesn't like them out in Vancouver and doesn't think they have a chance.
True.
I think Rick and the Vancouver Canucks have a great chance come playoff time. Chuck Knobloch out in Edmonton. What a turnaround for Chuck Knobloch in the Edmonton Oilers. They couldn't do squat right, and he turned around everything for the Oilers, and he deserves some mention right here. My other old coach, Peter Laviolette, the New York Rangers, they are dialed in, and if Shesterkin can get cooking, they will be dangerous come playoff time. And that, whoever called me 10 years ago, call me back because that's a list.
They're blocking you after that. Now this explains everything. That's why you're not actually a part of the community.
Dude,
the
you think that list is fraudulent?
I love
No, Noodles, don't comment, Noodles, until it's over.
I want to see both lists before I talk. I want to see both lists.
All right, Noodles, and you have to be objective here. Okay?
I am
know
going to
this
be
guy's
objective.
greasy. Probably called you earlier today and said, do me a favor.
Really? You probably called him.
Yeah,
fraud.
like I would do that. I am straight and narrow. I'm a man of integrity. But I love that that's your list because mine could not. It is totally different. We have a couple guys who are overlapping here, but I have a totally different list.
Go ahead, you fraud, and put your list up.
All right, let's put it up. Throw it up there because this is the list. This is going to get me established. I'm going to be fielding calls by 6 p.m. I have Rick Tocchet at number 1. Rick Tocchet has completely changed everything the Vancouver Canucks represent. That's what the Jack Adams is all about. That's what Montgomery did a year ago, and I'll get to my boy Monty in just a moment. But Demko out, you know what they're doing? They're playing better defensively. I've been so impressed by the way they've been shutting things down. Casey DeSmith looks like Tretiak back in the day because he's barely getting any shots, and that's Rick Tocchet leaning into them. They've had some controversy hanging around them, right? Making deals. What's going to happen with Pettersson? He's completely quieted that down. They could clinch the playoffs tonight. The first team in the NHL to clinch the playoffs. They very well could win the President's Trophy. This is a landslide for me. Rick Tocchet, friend of the show. We love Rick. Rick's at number 1. Jim Montgomery at number 2. It should be way louder around this guy because everything you stated is 100% accurate. No Bergeron, no Krejci. A lot of guys they acquired at the deadline moved on. Taylor Hall moved on. Nick Foligno, I think, was a really valuable piece in that room. He moved on. Yeah, they just keep plugging. They keep doing it the same way every single night. The reason I have him at number 2 is what I said about Rick, but also the goaltending. I know Demko's been outstanding, but Swayman and Ullmark are so good. Show me a good goalie, I'll show you a good coach. But I think Montgomery's been unbelievable, better than he was a year ago, and he won it last year running away. Monty at number 2. Andrew Brunette at 3. Absolutely absurd you don't have him in the top 5. For me, you should be expelled. You should be out of this practice, not having Bruno in the top 5. Have you seen what he's been doing recently?
17 in a row.
Unbelievable what's going on down in Nashville. And I want to see, I hope the awards are at the Sphere. And Bono should come out and he should drop kick him right in the head and say, no Bono for you, no Bono for the Preds. I'm Andrew Brunette. I made the greatest coaching decision in history by pulling you two away from our guys. And what did he play? AC/DC, Megadeth? You don't want U2 during the season.
You're telling me Paul Maurice is not on your list?
Absolutely not. They went to the Cup final last year. They got Bob. They're loaded. They're a really good team. I do not have.
Look
Paul
how
Maurice.
Vegas is playing right now. They're tired. Going to the Cup final has a wear and tear, but you wouldn't understand that.
No, I do not have Mo in my top 5. Might be at 6, maybe, but I don't. I have Andrew Brunette at 3. I have Rod Brindamore at 4. How many teams did we talk about earlier in the year? Could not get stops. Jersey could not get stops. Cost them their coach. Edmonton could not get stops. Cost them their coach. Rod Brindamore couldn't get a stop. Could not get a stop, and yet he still found a way to get that team chugging. Look at how well they're playing right now. Rod the Bod, that's my boy. Love Rod Brindamore. Very close with Rod Brindamore.
Dude, I sat beside him in the
of
locker
Rod
room.
Brindamore. I have Rod Brindamore at 4. And I know you don't want to do it because he bothers everybody. He bothers me more than anyone else. John Tortorella's got to be on this list. Sorry. John Tortorella has got to be on this list. That team
scratching his coach, scratching his captain.
They're tanking. They're tanking. They were sellers at the deadline. They're still going to make the playoffs. They're still going to make the playoffs. And I don't like his tactics. I don't like the arrogance and the approach and the general attitude of Tortorella bothers me. Like it bothers a lot of people. Yet he pushes buttons. He gets his team to compete. Yes, he does some silly stuff, but it works in the end. You gotta give credit where credit's due. The fact that Philly's going to the playoffs is remarkable, and I think Tortorella deserves a lot of credit there. So there you have it. I mean, that's Noodles. That's probably your list. Tocchet, Montgomery, Brunette, Brindamore, Tortorella.
Noodles, I just want you to honestly. I want you to take a deep breath, and then you've probably already come to a decision. But just take a deep breath, and which one are you going with?
Okay, so I'm going with Team Hayes.
Yes.
And I'll tell you why.
Thank you.
No, I'll tell you why. Because in my voting, I had Rick Tocchet at 1, and I had John Tortorella at 2. Now, we voted a while ago, so Andrew Brunette was not in the heater.
Blasphemy.
Yeah, but I feel like this is. I feel like we need an outside party here.
He is the outside party.
I am the outside party.
He catered. You catered to his picks.
I didn't cater to his picks. Those are my picks. Those are the picks that I
exactly
actually voted and chose.
Chris Edwards, who just messaged you, I want a guy that's not involved now. We got to take it to an outside party.
Now he's poisoned. He's implicated.
I'll let Noodles speak. I'll let him speak.
You asked me whose list I like better. My list is more leaning towards Hayes than yours. In real time, you only get to vote for 3. That's why 5 kind of threw me off a little bit. But I think Jimmy Montgomery. Where's Jared Bednar on this list?
There's only so many guys. Sheldon Keefe should be in somewhere in the conversation too. He's done a phenomenal job this year.
Been great. But to me, the story is Rick Tocchet is my 1 because that team we all picked at the start of the year. None of us picked them to be a playoff team. They have a chance to win the President's Trophy. John Tortorella came out and said, we are going in a rebuild. There might be some pain here. They're in a playoff spot.
Yep.
That he's coaching the hell out of that team. John Tortorella's a great coach. And you're right.
What about my guy Chris Knobloch at Edmonton? They were the worst team in pro hockey. Don't shake your head. Ridiculous. Worst team in pro hockey, and it's an incredible turnaround.
I agree. Chris Knobloch deserves to be on that list. So does Jim Montgomery. So does Paul Maurice. All of the guys that you
Paul Maurice
laid
at
out.
1 though. Noodles. Just be honest.
No, I didn't have him at 1. I didn't have
not.
him at 1.
Of course
but
not.
but I had Rick Tocchet at 1, and I had John Tortorella at 2.
You guys don't
on my
talk to the
list.
same hockey people that I do. I'll tell you
Exactly.
why.
I don't allow my
Listen,
opinions to be
I'm
infiltrated by some sort of bias.
You guys
I'm
know
as objective as they come.
I'm in the rinks every night. You guys know that I don't have a favorite team. I just go out and I call games and I kind of leave things out. Yes, you do have a favorite team.
But I didn't have Keefe in the top 5.
I understand that. But what I'm saying is, you asked me just to pick one list. I identify
list.
closer to Hayes's than yours.
Identify closer to Hayes's.
That's what I'm saying.
Okay. All right. You're softening it. Be honest. You think my list was phenomenal. It's fine. You can say that.
I said I choose Hayes's list. You just said choose one or the other. Cut and dry. I choose Hayes's list because he had a couple of the guys that I had on my list. That was
guys, I didn't know, and I'm sorry. I want to apologize to listeners, viewers. We should have had a third party that's not associated with voting because there's bias involved here. I need a guy to look at this and say this list is better.
All right,
not this
let's send our list to somebody. Who can we send our list to? That's a mutual friend of the show, but someone.
James Duthie.
No, because you get in Duthie's ear all the time.
Yeah,
and you threaten him and stuff. So I wouldn't.
We need someone away from
I will
TSN.
find somebody. I will find somebody, and we'll come up with a list. I'll find somebody neutral. If you don't believe I'm neutral,
you know what? The guy we just had on, Jason
on
Strudwick. There's no way in hell that he votes.
Well, no, because you got Knobloch in there, so Struddy's going to see the Oilers and immediately say that's my list.
You know what, Jamie? You talk to Chris Edwards. Just show him the list and say which one's better, and tell us after the break.
You're just going to try to find someone until they say your list.
Okay, you pick the guy. It's got to be a third party.
All right.
I'll find somebody.
We'll
find
somebody.
We'll find somebody. Right at 6 o'clock.
Do you want to keep doing this? Because we're supposed to do another one tomorrow and the next day, and I'm worried by Thursday your head's going to blow off.
Shut up, man. You don't discredit me as a guy that's more.
Dance circles around your list here,
and
I'm going to get invited to vote, and I think this is going to be a real wedge in our relationship.
Oh, so my list is just some blow-up-doll list?
Your list is awesome,
Where's the Guelph Storm coach? Any other former coaches you want to mix into your top 5? Who else can we get in there?
Rod Brindamore, his teammate, is on yours.
How Rod the Bod was on mine and not on yours.
You know what?
Shocking.
You really dug in deep when you said my boy. That one cut deep.
I love Rod the Bod. I love that guy. All right, hour 3 coming up. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on the TSN app.